This first panel is the future of cannabis retail in Canada. I don't know if I need to say Canada anymore, and I don't know if I need to say cannabis anymore, because we all know why we're here. Our panelists this morning are Sarah England, Director of Market and Consumer Experience Intelligence with the Ontario Cannabis Store. Welcome, Sarah. Rick Moriarty, co-founder, High North Labs. How you doing, Rick? Good morning. Meris Kott is the former CEO of Shinybud. And we also have Katy Perry, founder and CEO of Toke Cannabis. Our esteemed panelists. We have a few questions. We're going to try and get through as many as we can. And we're going to give as much time as we can for the panelists to answer, but know that we are on a tight schedule. There is no Q&A directly following the panel, but there is one reserved for the end of the day. So, all right, opening question. Are you ready? I feel like I'm on a game show. First question, this is for Sarah. Sarah, what major shifts are you seeing in consumer behavior within the cannabis retail space?
Let me just check. This is work. Oh, it is working. Okay, good. So at OCS, we do a lot of studies with consumers every year. Two of our major studies are our landscape, our usage and attitudes and segmentation study, as well as our shopper journey, understanding when someone decides to purchase cannabis, all the decisions they make on the way. One of the interesting things that we've been seeing is that consistent shift from online to retail. Like, yes, we know during COVID, everyone was buying everything online, stores weren't open, and as soon as that was over, stores opened up, there was that huge influx. What's really fascinating about the cannabis industry is that we see that continued shift, while in other industries, people stayed with the online or changed their behavior more to online. What we're really seeing here is that shoppers have a lot of heart for their stores. For them, bricks and mortar win out on convenience, for sure, but also for their experience, for shopping, for being able to discover new products, as well as connecting with staff. On the other hand, we ask our shoppers what they say are the benefits of brick and mortar over online. One of the less good things that we've seen is people are putting a lot less importance, or the only thing on a decline is support or education at the store. So there's two ways to look at that. One, consumers don't need as much support as they needed to, or two, that they're finding they're not getting what they expected in the store, so they're going online for that information and support, which is also an opportunity for them to shift away from that preference for retail. Along with that, now 1 in 4 cannabis consumers in Ontario are new consumers. So going into your store, that's about 25%, but they're only worth 5% of sales. Now you can look at that as a problem. One, they're more difficult to serve as they don't necessarily know the category or know what they're looking for. And they're worth a lot less money, 5% of all volume or all sales.
Thank you, Sarah. I always thought online, a lot of retailers driving towards online. Next question, Katy, I'm coming at you.
I'm ready.
What's been the key success for Toke?
Okay, well, two parts to my answer here. I think the most important part of my success is definitely the people that I work with and the teams that I've put together. They're a great group of passionate individuals, and they love what they do. And so I think that's first and foremost. Without a good team, there's no way you're going to be successful in this industry. My second key to success is that because I'm an independent, I don't have a huge, board of directors or, middle management. So when I need to make a decision or change the course of operations, it's very, very simple and straightforward. It is an idea that comes to me. 2 days later, it's been implemented. And I think that with a lot of the bigger chains and the bigger companies in this industry, change comes a little bit more slowly and it takes a little bit more time. And so, for us being such a small organization full of passionate individuals, we're able to pivot very, very quickly and sort of stay ahead of the curve in terms of consumer trends and what people are looking for and experience of consumers coming in the store. So I think for us, those are probably the two most important things.
Makes a lot of sense, and it aligns obviously with what Sarah was saying, whereas that in-store experience, but also the ability to pivot quickly. We know how hard it is to steer a big ship. Okay, moving over to some challenges on the regulatory side. Meris, I know this is a fun question for you. So just a reminder, Meris is the former CEO of Shinybud, so she's got a lot of experience in the space and understanding these bigger ships. But Meris, what are the biggest regulatory challenges that you would see we're facing right now in Canada?
Well, in Canada, we keep on complaining about the regulatory challenges, about marketing. We keep on complaining about the regulatory challenges, about marketing. But I think that we have to actually really appreciate the fact that amongst all the countries, and I live in Boca Raton, Florida, and we voted against recreational adult use last week, that we're way ahead of everybody else. And we just have to be innovative in our marketing challenges here, events, marketing to your loyalists, and programs like that, instead of always complaining. On another standpoint, we always complain about about what percentage of THC we have in our products or our gummies or anything. We're way ahead of the rest of the world. So when I got this question, I was going to tell you guys that you're ahead of everybody else. And so I, coming from Montreal, look at this and say, we shouldn't be complaining. We should be finding new, innovative ways in order to market our products and in order to get new, diverse products into the market versus always worrying about what we don't have. We should be appreciative of what we have here.
It's a good point. I'll let you have that one. But I think we all look at the U.S. and we're thinking, wow, what an open market. The regulations and packaging, everything is quite different. But it's the pressure that we're seeing here in Canada that gives us that ability to innovate and look for those opportunities to not break rules, but maybe bend them a little bit. Rick, I'd really like to understand your insight. What are you seeing in the evolution on the side of testing, how that's being communicated to customers at the retail level? We know that there's a lot of movement right now, obviously, around standardization, but what are you seeing? How would you sum it up?
I think it's a little bit difficult because there's so many different markets, even within Canada, in the sense of Quebec not allowing more than 30% THC. And then you look at clients of ours that are not working within Ontario that are exporting, and they've got to deal with Israel, which is 24% limit, and then other ones that have kind of weird regulations too. So it's interesting to see the different products that the producers are putting out there, especially processors, that are kind of like what Meris was saying, working within the regulations, coming up with innovative ideas to still meet those regulations, adding CBD to the hash to lower that THC, to hit that 30% so they can go to Quebec, stuff like that. So I think they just gotta play within the regulations, and for the standardization, that's also a little bit difficult too, because everyone has different equipment, different environments. I do think, though, if they follow ISO 17025, which is for laboratories, that is a good standardization to follow, and that's something that a third party, not even Health Canada, is what's coming in to audit you and assess you.
So, quick question, I'm just going to go off script for a second. There's a lot of talk, obviously, about the standardization, and within the context of that, it's been basically left from Health Canada to the industry. It's almost like sending kids to the room that have been fighting and going, look, you guys go and sort this out, and when you figured it out, you come back to us. Is that the stance? Is that the way the industry is currently putting itself together to present back standardization opportunities to Health Canada?
Yeah, for sure. I think it also is, like you said, Health Canada goes, hey, you choose any one of these 8 pharmacopoeias out of Schedule B to the Food and Drug Act. And what, that's supposed to apply to cannabis? Right? And then they make the licensed producers, people who are growing weed for 20 years and now got in the legal side, you have to go and audit the lab. But they're not scientists. That should be Health Canada's job. Health Canada should set, here's the rules for testing of cannabis products, cannabis flower, edibles, whatever it is, and this is what everyone has to follow, both labs and the producers. But unfortunately, Health Canada's taken a step back.
Not unlike other things. It's somewhat disappointing. Anyways, we'll cheer it up a little bit. Moving into data, tech, and consumer experience. Sarah, this is certainly directed at you. How can retailers, for those that don't subscribe or understand data is important. It's your roadmap. But how can retailers use data to improve the consumer and customer experience?
Well, as you said, data is very important, and I'm pretty much a data geek, so I will stand by that. But it's not everything. For me, or for everyone, data doesn't equal success. It's how you use it. You can have as much information, as many facts, data, but unless you plan how you're going to use it, you're going to become overwhelmed or not necessarily use it in the right way. So for me, data is about an art and a science. It starts with your expertise. You own your stores, you know your shoppers, you know the flow that works for you. It's about you setting up what your strategy is and then looking at the data then. Interpreting it, looking at the questions that you'd ask. What is your strategy on mix? What are your turns? How are you going to make sure you have your core assortment plus a tail that makes you competitive with the people next door? How are you going to assess the type of shoppers you want to come in? It's there's so many ways that you can go, just a few there. The data program or the retailer data program is a great opportunity. There's lots of things that you might not even think of looking, so you can understand in your region what are the best performing SKUs, see where you stack up. Are there items that you're missing out on, or even the average price per SKU in your region? Are you losing out on margin, or are you not competitive on prices? But again, you have to start with an intent, not just take all the data in, and then it's what you do with it that really brings the magic.
Do you notice a difference from the early adopters that came into the industry, obviously, rooted in the legacy market, understanding what consumers want, versus those entering now? Do they pay more attention to data now versus early days, or are you seeing a difference at all?
No, actually, I'm not. We're finding, we know our data program usage is pretty low, about 9% are using the free program for data of our retailers. So I wouldn't say that, but that's not to discount the beyond data, the expertise, the coming in from that market, understanding your shoppers and your needs more than data can tell you. It's a think, feel, do. How people act is not necessarily what they say. It's merging the two together. I think as it's more competitive, it is an opportunity to set yourself apart. As Katy said, independent retailers particularly can pivot. And by looking at this data, and there's going to be improvements, it's going to be faster and more up to date, but looking at it gives you that ability to pivot. When trends change, when the market changes, you can get ahead of it. But it's only if you put that effort in and you plan the way you want to use it.
That makes sense. Katy, what technology has been most valuable for Toke as you've navigated this industry? And where do you see it going?
Well, the technology that I use predominantly would be my inventory control software. Ordering and inventory control are probably the most important things for me. Being a pretty small independent, we like to keep as much money going through our bank accounts as possible. I don't know how else to say that. And so, when we have inventory sit or there are mistakes with the ordering process, it really is an impediment to how we run our organization. And so, shout out to Greenline. They have a great reorder tool. It keeps my inventory fresh. It keeps it moving. Headset is another really great one where it sort of shows me my daily tallies, what are my most aggressively moving products, what doesn't move, and often it will open your eyes. As a consumer, I'm always like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be a banger. And then sometimes I'm like, whoa, I was wrong. The data doesn't lie to you. The numbers don't lie to you. And so I think any software that really opens your eyes to that and assists with inventory control and management is key for the retail operators, 100%.
That makes sense. So don't build your menu based on personal preferences?
Don't build your menu based on personal preferences. And I think, I've obviously been selling weed in a retail storefront for almost 10 years, but, that pivot in legalization is something that really opened my eyes, because I really had to take a step back and be like, this is something that I would really enjoy. That doesn't mean the masses would enjoy it. So, I'm the self-proclaimed queen of the mids. That's what I find people love, is sort of that mid-range product where quality matches price. And
That's what I'm looking for. That may not necessarily be what I'm smoking on a Friday night, but I understand that's what my consumers are looking for.
That makes sense. Meris, I think with your experience at the corporate level, this is quite important. What do you see the difference between, or where do you see the difference between independent and corporate retailers, and how can independent retailers focus on growth versus what the corporate giants are doing?
You know, that's a really tough question, but I can only say that the people in this audience should consider themselves, I don't want to use the word, but I couldn't find another thesaurus word. You're the survivors of the industry. You began the industry. A lot of you came from the legacy market, and a lot of us didn't pay attention to what you brought to the market. And what Canada has shown since 2018 is QSR, all the stores that thought, and the capital markets, which I come from, we were going to be the survivors. We were going to change the industry. And I think through the years we've seen ups and downs, and I don't want to start going through all the companies that have closed and moved and everything. You know, I came into a company to clean them up. I wasn't one of the founders of the company, and what I realized is some of the mistakes they made were none of the mistakes you guys make. You know, like Katy said, you have to pivot quickly. You've got to look at your KPIs. You've got to look at the products you're bringing in. A lot of the companies that I was associated with or that I've worked with recently, they assumed this was QSR. Now, I don't want to make fun of some of the companies surviving out there right now in the big corporate, but they've pivoted as quickly as independent.
It's easy to look at the corporate giants and think that they're doing something right, but clearly we know that they are doing very much wrong. I'm looking at you, Owen. Okay, so in that vein, Rick, what should labs be doing? And I'm not talking just High North, but what should labs be doing when it comes to lab testing standardization, but at the level to be able to support the actual retailers themselves? What is being done and what can be done?
I think there needs to be more transparency on the certificates of analysis, and probably more regulations around the batch sizing for the LP as well, so that they're actually sending in a representative sample. That can be something that's very difficult for any kind of lab to be testing and be representative of that little 3.5 gram jar. With regards to the COA transparency, I think if it's allowed to be on the packaging, and then a consumer in the store could, scan it, pull up the certificate of analysis, see the results, see the terpene profile, all that kind of stuff, then that would help push the narrative towards further education as well. Education and removing the stigma, I think, is something that really has to happen at the retail level. And it's difficult when it comes from a brand because they feel that they're pushing, maybe their own product or something. So a third-party lab, for example, that would be a great one, which is what we're doing over there too with High North Education. OCS has got a big narrative on education, and they're kind of third party in a sense, right? So I think that's something that's going to be big for everyone.
It makes sense. Let me actually ask, Katy, do you, as a retailer, do you pay attention to the COAs at all? And I'm not saying that to say that COAs aren't important. So Rick's talking about the transparency and brands providing those COAs.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps not as much as I should, to be honest. I just got a little explanation as to what it was. I mean, it's something we definitely peruse and we definitely look at. I definitely pay more attention to consumer trends. I bank on the legal market taking care of that kind of stuff for me. I know the products are superior in terms of testing and regulation already, so I probably spend less time looking at that as I do just the different metrics of the product itself and seeing if it's going to sell.
It makes sense. And the reason I ask is I'm wondering if it's just a matter... Yeah, I'll let you go, Meris.
Katy only buys legal products. Don't worry about it. They all have COAs.
Yeah,
There's all
legal
COAs,
products.
but the question is, are we as an industry maybe not doing enough so that those COAs or the certificate analysis are present so the consumers are aware? I think the future, as we start to understand those mid-level THC products, or maybe in the complementary ones that are one-to-one, what terps are available, right? What's the experience coming out of it? And I wonder if that's maybe just what it is right now.
But like conversely, and if you don't mind me jumping in here again, is like if you look at the LCBO, like who's really looking at a certificate of analysis when they're putting stuff on the shelf? At this point, we trust the process, That's why we pay big bucks for licensing fees, and we're so in the world of regulations. Like, we have now put this trust in the government to do these things for us, and whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's the reality of being a part of a very heavily regulated industry. If this were black market days where I was buying bulk weed, I certainly did look at the certificate of analysis and where was it tested and what was in it, and you really would look at it with more of a microscope. Now I think we have to just relinquish some of that control.
Makes sense. Go ahead, Rick.
I think that's also something to help differentiate us between the legacy retail stores right now and the legal ones. It's clean, it's but of course, just like when you buy a thing of raspberries, there might be one that doesn't look so good or whatever, right? That's still going to happen regardless. But as far as the pesticides, the heavy metals, that stuff should not be in the legal retail stores.
I agree. Okay, so the last one's kind of open. It's for everyone. You can jump in. What's one piece of advice that each of you could provide for our audience when it comes to cannabis retail? Sarah, we'll start with you and go across, and then anyone can jump in. It's for all of you.
Sure. I can go back to the data story. It's use the tools that you have available to you. This market is changing really quickly. From a research perspective, we wouldn't do this much research in any other industry because it is changing. So keep ahead of those trends. Use the tools that are available to you. We now have monthly insights that are available for all retailers to access, where we look at trends, whether it's flavor trends, whether it's purchase behavior in the holiday seasons. And to Katy's point, it's about understanding your shopper. It's not about getting products in there that are for you. It's about who the audience is, and that's really how you're going to succeed.
That's good. Thank you. Rick?
I think exactly what Sarah said, though, and listening to what Katy was saying, how she's listening to the consumers, she's pivoting. You gotta be able to help provide what sells at your individual store or in that area. You can't just kind of blanket order for the whole company, in my opinion. I think it has to be unique to the area, to the store, and listening to that feedback.
Good. Meris?
Well, the industry is diversifying, and although we all know that a part of our store we'd love to sell pain meds and medical and everything, we still should keep our eyes to diversifying. And I hate to use an expression that all of you might boo me, but we have to make cannabis great again in Canada. That's the reality.
If you missed that, she said you have to make cannabis great again in Canada.
No, but it's the reality. We were the first rec, we were the first adult. We had to use adult use. I remember if I said rec, adult use cannabis. We're the only people who still have regulated industry in both. We're way ahead of other countries right now. When Germany thought that they were going to all get in medical and then there was going to be rec, it's a mess. We were one of the licenses we got in the Holland. It's a mess. We should really appreciate this, and people are still coming here from the United States to buy us. So, I don't want to say it, but we have to make cannabis great again in Canada.
You can applaud. It's true. Katy?
My advice to any retailers in the room, passionate retailers, people that are really in this game now because they love what they're doing, is just to hold the line, really. Like, we're going to rebalance. We're going to find our equilibrium. I think pioneers always get arrows, and that's sort of the reality of the industry at this point in time. It's hard and it's challenging, but if your heart and your mind are in the right place and you really love what you're doing and you want to provide the best consumer experiences, just hold the line and keep going, and everything's going to balance out.
I love that. I think one of the things, at least from my perspective, that I notice that separates or differentiates the independents versus the corporate is the passion. There is way more passion in the independent space than there is at the corporate level. I speak from experience in discussing that with many, many, many people. Okay, that wraps this panel up, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.